Round the World Lit Audio. The Ramayana, retold from Valmiki. Episode 1, Bala Kanda. The Birth of Rama and the Marriage to Sita. Channel Intro. Welcome to Around the World Lit Audio, the greatest novels ever written, from every corner of the world, in English. New chapter every week. Free to listen. Series Introduction. Today we begin a new book, the Ramayana, the great Sanskrit epic of ancient India, attributed to the sage Valmiki, composed somewhere between 500 BCE and 100 CE, making it among the oldest narrative literature in human history. It is one of the two foundational epics of Hindu civilization, alongside the Mahabharata, and its influence extends across the cultures of India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Thailand, Indonesia, Cambodia, Malaysia, Laos, and the entire South and Southeast Asian world. It has been retold, reimagined, performed, painted, sculpted, and sung for over 2,000 years. It is still performed today in temples and theaters across Asia and among Hindu communities on every continent. The Ramayana tells the story of Rama, Prince of Ayodhya, seventh avatar of the god Vishnu, the ideal man, and his wife Sita, his devoted brother Lakshmana, and the great monkey general Hanuman. It is a story of duty and love and exile and war. It is a story about what it means to be good, not simply to do good things, but to be a person of such complete integrity that your nature and your actions are inseparable, that you are the same person in prosperity and in catastrophe, in exile and in triumph. It is also a story about the abduction of a woman, and the war fought to bring her home, the oldest story in the world, which is also the story of the Iliad, which is also the story that reappears in every culture that has ever produced a literature, because it is not just a story about a woman and a war, but about what we are willing to do for what we love and what the doing costs. What follows is a faithful prose retelling of Valmiki's epic, honoring the spirit, the characters, the drama, and the spiritual significance of the original while making it accessible to a new listener in a new language. Episode 1, Bala Kanda. The Birth of Rama and the Marriage to Sita. Bala Kanda, the childhood book. In the kingdom of Kosala, on the banks of the sacred river Shiva, stood the city of Ayodhya. Ayodhya was everything that a city should be: wide streets and beautiful gardens, learned priests and skilled craftsmen, merchants and soldiers, a population that was prosperous and content and governed justly. At its center was the palace of King Dasharatha, the lord of Kosala, a man of great virtue, who had ruled for many thousands of years and had fought alongside the gods against the demons and had earned, through long service and genuine goodness, the love of his people and the respect of heaven. Dasharatha had one sorrow. He had no son. He had 3 wives, Kaushalya, Kaikeyi, and Sumitra, each of whom he loved, none of whom had given him the heir that a king requires and that Dasharatha desired with the specific longing of an old man, who has built something and cannot bear to think of it ending when he does. He performed the great sacrifice, the Putrakamshti, the sacrifice for the blessing of children, with the help of the sage Rishyashringa. The fire of the sacrifice burned for many days. From the fire emerged a divine figure carrying a golden vessel, and the figure said to Dasharatha, "The gods are pleased with you. Drink from this vessel and give of its contents to your wives, and your desire will be fulfilled." Dasharatha gave half the divine payasam to Kaushalya. Of what remained he gave half to Kaikeyi. Of what remained he gave half to Sumitra, and the rest also to Sumitra. In due course, 4 sons were born. Kaushalya bore Rama, Kaikeyi bore Bharata, Sumitra bore Lakshmana and Shatrughna. Of the 4, Rama was the eldest and the most extraordinary, not simply the most capable, which he also was, but the most complete. He had the beauty of the moon, and the strength of a god and the composure of someone, for whom virtue was not an achievement but a nature. He did not need to work at being good. He was good in the way that the sun is bright, not because it has decided to be but because it is what it is. He was also the avatar of Vishnu. The god Vishnu, the preserver, one of the 3 great gods of Hindu tradition, had agreed to take human form in this age, to be born as a man and live as a man and face, as a man, the great challenge of the age, which was the demon king Ravana. Ravana had performed austerities of extraordinary power, and had received from Brahma the creator a boon, the guarantee that no god and no demon could kill him. He had not thought to mention human beings. Vishnu had taken note of this oversight. Rama grew up in the palace of Ayodhya with his brothers, Lakshmana as his closest companion, the 2 of them inseparable from birth, moving through the world as though they were 2 bodies sharing a single intention. Lakshmana was fierce where Rama was calm, quick to anger where Rama was measured, devoted with the specific intensity of someone for whom the person they love is also the person they would die for without hesitation. They were educated by the great sage Vasishva, in the Vedas and in the arts of war, in the science of weapons and the science of governance, in everything that a prince of Ayodhya, needed to know to be the king that Ayodhya deserved. When Rama was 16, the sage Vishwamitra came to Ayodhya. Vishwamitra was a man of enormous austerity and enormous power, a king who had become a Brahmin through the force of his own discipline, a transformation so difficult that the gods themselves had acknowledged it. He came to Dasharatha with a request. He said, "Demons are disturbing my sacrifices. They defile what is sacred. I need someone to protect the sacrifice for 10 days. He said, "I need Rama." Dasharatha said, "Rama is 16 years old. Send your armies. Send experienced warriors. I will come myself." Vishwamitra said, "I need Rama." Dasharatha argued at length, with the eloquence of a father who does not want to send his son into danger. Vishwamitra waited. When Dasharatha had finished arguing, the sage Vasishtha said, "Great king, Vishwamitra is asking for the right person. Rama is not a boy. Send him." Rama went with Lakshmana at his side. In the forest, Vishwamitra taught them. He gave them divine weapons, not physical objects but mantras, the sacred words that summon power from the universe, that call into the hands of the speaker forces older and larger than ordinary human strength. He gave them Bala and Bala, the weapons of strength and surpassing strength that would keep them from hunger and thirst and fatigue. He gave them other weapons, divine missiles that could destroy armies, that the gods themselves had forged for the wars against the demons before the world as it is now existed. Rama received each weapon with the specific attention of someone who understands that a gift of power is also a responsibility. He did not boast. He did not exult. He received, and understood, and was ready. The demons came. Tataka came first, a female demon of enormous size and power, who had terrorized the forest for years, whose presence had made the land barren and the air foul. Rama hesitated. He had been taught to honor women. He did not want to kill a woman. Vishwamitra said, "Dharma, the sacred duty, the right order of things, sometimes requires difficult action. Tataka has caused immeasurable suffering. Stopping that suffering is also dharma." Rama killed Tataka. He killed Maricha and Subahu, the demons who came to disturb the sacrifice. He drove off the demon armies. The sacrifice was completed. Vishwamitra's purpose was fulfilled. Then the sage said, "There is something else I want to show you." The marriage to Sita. In the kingdom of Mithila, the king Janaka kept a bow. It was not an ordinary bow. It was the bow of the god Shiva, given to Janaka's ancestors in an earlier age, enormous, divine, a weapon of such power that no ordinary man could even lift it. Janaka had made a vow. His daughter Sita would marry the man who could string the bow of Shiva. Many princes had come. Many princes had tried. Many princes had left without the bow being strung. Sita was Janaka's daughter, but not in the ordinary sense. She had not been born to him. She had been found, as a child, in the earth, when Janaka was plowing a sacred field. The earth had given her to him. She was therefore called Sita, from Sita, the furrow, and she was considered by those who understood such things to be a being of divine origin. Though in what sense and from what source was not entirely clear. She was beautiful and good and wise with the specific wisdom of someone who has not yet been tested, and whose goodness is therefore still theoretical, still the goodness of a nature rather than the goodness of a choice. The testing would come later. Vishwamitra brought Rama and Lakshmana to Mithila. Janaka received them with the honor due to the disciples of a great sage, and showed them the bow. Rama looked at the bow. He said to Vishwamitra, "May I try?" Vishwamitra said, "That is why we are here." Rama approached the bow. The assembled princes and kings watched. Some of them had already tried, had strained against the bow and failed, and were now present to watch the attempt of a 16-year-old who had come from Ayodhya with a sage. Rama lifted the bow. He lifted it as a man lifts something that is within his strength, not easily, because it was not easy, but without the visible straining that would indicate the effort required was beyond him. He lifted it. He strung it. He drew it back. The bow broke. It broke with a sound like thunder, a crack that filled the hall and traveled through Mithila and beyond. That caused the earth to tremble and the birds to scatter and every person present to understand simultaneously that something had happened that exceeded the ordinary categories of impressive feats. There was silence. Then Janaka said, "My vow is fulfilled. Sita has found her husband." The wedding was arranged with the proper ceremonies, the great rituals that marked the joining of two people in Vedic tradition, the fire and the sacred words, and the walking around the fire that constitutes the marriage in the oldest understanding. Bharata and Shatrughna came from Ayodhya with Dasharatha. The brothers of Rama, Lakshmana to Urmila, Bharata to Mandavi, Shatrughna to Shrutakirti, were also married in a great collective ceremony that joined two kingdoms and created, in the specific moment of the joining, the family that would be at the center of everything that followed. Rama and Sita were married. He looked at her. She looked at him. There was no dramatic exchange of words. The epics do not sentimentalize the moment. There was the fire and the priest and the sacred words, and the two of them walking together around the flame, and this walking together was the marriage. And the marriage was everything that followed, the exile and the war and the loss and the return. Everything that was coming was already contained in that walking around the fire in Mithila. They went home to Ayodhya. Ayodhya received them with the joy of a city that has been waiting for its prince to return and has found that he has returned more than he left. A prince, yes, but also a husband, and therefore a king in waiting, and therefore the future that the city had been holding its breath for. Dasharatha looked at his son and his son's wife, and felt the specific contentment of a man who has done what he set out to do, who has produced what he was supposed to produce, and can now begin to think about what comes next. What came next was the exile, but that was the next episode. Episode transition. You have reached the end of episode 1 of the Ramayana, retold from Valmiki. Rama has been born. Lakshmana has been born. The weapons have been given. The bow of Shiva has been broken. Sita has been found and married. The two of them have returned to Ayodhya, to a city full of joy and a father full of contentment. In episode 2, a promise made long ago by Dasharatha comes back to be kept, and Kaikeyi, the second queen, uses to boons the king owes her to change everything. Rama is sent into exile for 14 years. And what he does with the exile, and how he carries it, will determine everything that follows. Episode 2 is available next week. Subscribe to Around the World Lit Audio so you never miss a chapter. A new episode arrives every week.